Lever actions in Nerf have been far and few as a whole across all brands, and yet every time they show up, people go crazy over it. Starting out with the Busby, early 2000s lever actions, which took those like box magazine shell holders more so than genuine magazines, but still had that nice lever action response to them, a good whopping like 30-foot range. It was all nice and humble back then. That's when Nerf decided to step up to the plate under the Zombie Strike line, releasing the Slingfire, which this time used a gear prime as opposed to a kind of lever system, in which it is still lever action, but this time the gears did the work in compressing a spring, which allowed for slightly better ranges since it was kind of starting to reach that elite par side of things, being the standard across all blaster companies. And for the most part, that thing was pretty popular. You could Terminator, just hook it, wield it, however you want to do it like that. Taking actual Nerf magazines, so if you had your Raider drums and a pretty good spring in it, you were basically just flinging like a cowboy all day long. And then, yet again, another just eerie silence for a good 2 to 3 years, until Busby came back at it again with their magnum opus, the Busby Sentinel. Not only featuring, the same mechanical system compared to the gear system that the Zombie Strike Slingfire did, but also upping the game with metal internals and a very efficient air system that allowed for hobby grade springs, in which to this day, even recently, there are still metal kits available to turn it into a short dart monster. And then last but not least, yet again, silence across the lever action field happened, until recently when the new up-and-coming creator, already just up there with the likes of Captain Slug and Gavin Fuzzy, stepped up to the plate of lever action, this time bringing it to the community side rather than the first-party, third-party side. And with that, there's a buzz out there, and there's the SLAB right here. So first and foremost, the SLAB is, as I mentioned, a community-made 3D printed lever action blaster, which uses inspiration from the turnaround system that the Lynx has, in which when you compress the spring is pumped in this way forward, and then once you pull the whole system back, the air will instead of just flying straight that way, because it's not going to happen, it will instead fly this way through a turnaround behind the dart, and out it goes. In which you could just keep repeating that process over and over. Likewise, because of this system, the dart pusher itself does not need to be thick or heavy in order to allow air to pass through it, so you're able to create a tapered design, in which Silly Butts did, allowing you to open and close both reload this guy. The ergonomics are definitely superior to the Slingfire, the Sentinel, and even the early Busby offerings combined. The lever being what you want it to be, in this case I chose the big lever, which is not only long, but it is also wide. And as well as a stock, which is definitely long for adult users and perfectly fine for children. As well as a litany of just front grip options they can choose, in which in this case I chose the typical shotgun style backstop to it. Just really adds on to the points in terms of how long can you use this guy. Unfortunately, the one issue that it didn't fix is the one issue that all lever actions have. Priming by pushing forward on the lever on this enough times will definitely just sore out your knuckles or just annoy them, so just having some sort of padding at the bottom does help. From front to back, it is all what you want to make of it. There are different sling point attachments or no sling point attachments, with like little nuts on the back over here if you want a longer plunger rod for some reason. There is a 1-point screw right here, which does clamp the barrel into place, which the barrel is also seated in with 2 extra O-rings to support it, therefore keeping air seal well and alignment even better. And last but not least, the lever system. Buzzbee definitely was in the right direction with their lever, being able to directly push forward and have the lever system push back on the spring. But Silly Butts takes it up one step further. This time, it's no longer a matter of pulling a spring back, much like with many pump action blasters, top prime blasters, what have you, but rather the very action of pushing the lever forward itself uses two bars right here to also push the spring forward. This is the first blaster that I've ever had which genuinely uses a push force, not a pull force, to compress a spring. Where can you get a blaster like this? Mine was a gift from Silver Fox Industries in collaboration with Cybran Warrior. So that's one of the areas. They do DIY kits, hardware kits, and full customized built it as you like it blasters. Likewise, Out of Darts is also offering this as well. Yet again, hardware kits, DIY, and build and completely pre-built and ready to roll. My personal one has 3 different setups with it, which mainly revolve around the spring rather than the barrel itself. The barrel throughout all 3 combinations in terms of FPS is a 30 centimeter Kuriaka barrel with that purple blue fade because style. With this 5 kilo long shot spring that I have in it, I am hitting around 170 to 180 FPS, alongside obviously the Pentavictus scar up front, which is perfect for my club's rules of 200 FPS super stock. If I want to run it in HVZ, I swap out the spring for either a default long shot spring or the long shot style spring from the X-Shot Orbit, that 12 round pump action rival blaster that they offer. And last but not least, if I want to go above and beyond, a K18 spring or the Silver Fox 25/K25 spring will bump me up somewhere near 250. Gameplay evaluation. I don't like reviewing blasters if I haven't put them under live fire situations. The SLAB is amazing. I could run this all game, and with its loading mechanisms and my slower paced shot, style, except for a few pushes where I need to be aggressive to get to the objective, the SLAB worked well. The ergonomics had me never tire out of using this guy, compared to pump action where eventually enough pull force is gonna stress out your arm, or it's gonna, just like pull a muscle, especially if you have an uncomfortable, uneven grip. This guy with its push force meant that, yet again, the laborious task of, getting a springer ready to fire has never been an issue. What has been an issue on the field, however, is the issue that is not SLAB exclusive, but I'm hypothesizing turnaround system proprietary dart pusher exclusive. Squibs. The blaster primes well, you aim your shot, you know the target's a certain feet away, and yet the dart barely goes like 20 feet, 30 if you're lucky on a good End Strike Maverick day, and that's about it. You just hear a fart noise, it's done for. There's no point in that. I've had certain magazines, or in general, just certain times where I blow through half a Tachi mag, or at least half of a Talon mag, with nothing but squibs. Part of it is the fact that this guy is very picky on darts. It does not like any sort of slightly used darts which are compressed in your magazine if you stack enough in there, obviously. So in this case, a lot of community bin darts, because not all of us can afford to be bringing our own fresh darts right out of the package every single event that we go to. The next issue is with the proprietary plunger system, or the proprietary dart pusher system. This does not use the ramrods that we see in Caliburns, Talon Claws, and Skewers. This uses its own design, which is not compatible with anything else. And while that is nice, in that yet again, 3D printed options, if it breaks you just print another one, it does mean that any sort of incorrect printer settings, any sort of just little misalignment in the prints will in fact have feeding darts a certain way. I've had the dart pusher actually squish darts on their right side between the barrel and the dart pusher O-rings themselves, so you gotta be careful, make sure your prints are nice, make sure your O-rings are just perfect, or else otherwise there will be mischamberings or misalignments of your darts. Last but not least, the air system. With the turnaround piece in just the slab, the skewer, maybe the red herring, which, Taffy, the guy behind the skewer, just released. Maybe with that air release system, making that the air comes to the dart from below instead of directly behind, like the holes through the ramrods. That might also misalign the darts. And with weaker darts, as I said, the more squishier kinds, that might be where the issue of squibbing happens, where the air pressure just compresses the dart into the barrel, the sides of the barrel, as opposed to pushing it out, and therefore has the dart, do something as insane as roll over, which I have had to push out of in this blaster. There have been rollover darts in here. So yeah, that's kind of the biggest downside to slabs, to lynxes and things like that, is just there's something with the turnaround system and proprietary dart pusher which causes squibbing. And honestly, because this system is so new, only being put into like broad use about 3 years ago or so, I'm not going to be surprised if hopefully within the next year or so that issue gets resolved, much like early issues that you may have remembered if you ever used the Talon Claw or Caliburn way back in the early 2010s. Overall, at the end of the day, the slab, even with the squib issue, which just means choose your darts wisely out of your community bins, it is still phenomenal. It is comfortable to use. It is easy to use. No matter what spring you put in here, you are going to have a good time. You're going to use minimal strength. All you need to do is just get a good optic on here, depending on what your game mode is, what your FPS is. A nice scar barrel up front, your spring and barrel to your own liking, and you're good enough to go. Whether it's with Talons, whether it's short 10 rounders, whether it's Tachis like I usually run, the slab all around is very, very amazing, and it is definitely the best of all worlds, bringing together the past iterations of lever actions into the modern day 3D printing, foam blast scene. Thank you, Silly Butts, for such an awesome creation like this. I've already mentioned, I'll put links down below on where you could get anything related to the slab. And overall, don't let the squib issue that I ranted on about earlier put you off from blasters like this, or lynx, or red herrings, what have you. Eventually, we're going to find out what's up with those, and future designs will probably resolve the squibbing issue altogether. Regardless though, this has been Spartan on Battle Tested, in this case featuring the slab, and I will hope you see you guys next time, and I definitely hope to run more events, and just in general, just fling foam with the nicest lever action around.